In the quiet town of Riverview, a serene park rested at its center, where people often gathered to unwind, enjoy nature, and escape the hustle of daily life. On one particular late afternoon, the air was filled with the gentle sound of violin music, captivating everyone within earshot. A young boy named Lucas stood near the fountain, his small hands masterfully guiding the bow across the strings. Despite being only 10 years old, his talent was astonishing, and soon a small crowd formed around him, enchanted by the melodies flowing from his instrument. Among the onlookers was Michael, a man in his early 40s who had just finished another long day at his law firm. He often passed through the park on his way home, but something about the music today stopped him in his tracks. As he listened, his sharp blue eyes, tired from years of professional battles, softened. The tune stirred something deep inside him, something he hadn't felt in years, an echo of a past he thought he had buried. When Lucas finished his piece, the crowd applauded, and the boy gave a shy smile, his cheeks reddening slightly from the attention. As the noise died down, Lucas spoke softly, his voice tinged with a hint of emotion. "Now I'm going to play a song that means a lot to me. It was my mom's favorite." Michael's breath caught in his throat. He had no idea why, but a sense of foreboding washed over him. As the first notes of the next piece filled the air, Michael froze. His heart pounded in his chest. He knew this melody. It was a song he had composed many years ago with a woman he had loved more than life itself. Her name was Isabel, and she had been his muse, his partner in everything, until she was taken from him far too soon. As the melody wove through the air, memories flooded Michael's mind. Isabel's laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when they talked about the future, and the many nights they had spent together, dreaming of a life full of love and music. But those dreams were shattered when she passed away suddenly, leaving him alone with nothing but the pain of her loss. When the song ended, Michael was rooted to the spot, overwhelmed by emotion. He felt compelled to approach the boy, who was packing up his violin, and before he could stop himself, he called out, "That song. Where did you learn it?" Lucas looked up, his deep brown eyes wide with curiosity. "My mom taught it to me before she passed away," he said quietly, a small, sad smile crossing his face. "She told me it was a special song." Michael's world tilted. His pulse quickened, and he knelt down to the boy's level, his voice barely a whisper. "What was your mother's name?" "Isabel," Lucas replied, his voice soft, full of loss. Michael's breath hitched. Isabel, the love of his life. He stared at the boy, searching his face for signs of the woman he had loved, and there they were, in his eyes, in his smile, in the way he held himself. It was then that Michael realized the truth. This boy, this talented young violinist, was his son. Before he could speak another word, an older woman approached, her expression filled with both recognition and apprehension. She gently placed a hand on Lucas's shoulder. "It's time to go, sweetheart," she said softly, her voice steady but strained. Lucas nodded and gathered his things. As he and the woman began to walk away, she turned to Michael, her eyes meeting his for a brief moment. And in that gaze, he knew, she understood who he was. Without another word, they left the park, leaving Michael standing there, grappling with the realization that he had a son he never knew existed. For weeks after that encounter, Michael couldn't shake the image of Lucas and the sound of the melody they both shared. He spent hours lost in thought, going through old letters and photographs of Isabel, trying to make sense of it all. One evening, while searching through a box of keepsakes he hadn't opened in years, he found a letter from Isabel, written shortly before she passed. His hands trembled as he unfolded the paper. In the letter, Isabel revealed a heartbreaking truth. She had discovered she was pregnant shortly after they had parted ways. Fearful of how he might react and unsure of what the future held, she hadn't told him. By the time she had gathered the courage to reach out, her illness had progressed, and she hadn't wanted to burden him with the knowledge of their child. Tears streamed down Michael's face as he read her words. The pain of losing her now intertwined with the sorrow of never having known his own son. But within that grief, there was a glimmer of hope. He had a son, a living connection to Isabel, and he would do everything he could to be a part of Lucas's life. Determined, Michael returned to the park day after day, watching Lucas from a distance as he played his violin. It was both a source of comfort and pain to hear the music they had once shared, now alive through their son. Weeks passed before Michael finally found the courage to approach Lucas again. One late afternoon, as Lucas finished playing another hauntingly beautiful piece, Michael sat down beside him on the bench. "That song, the one you played last time, I helped write it," he said softly, his voice full of emotion. Lucas looked up, his eyes wide with surprise. "You knew my mom?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. Michael nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of what he was about to say. "I knew her very well, and there's something important I need to tell you." Before he could continue, the elderly woman, Lucas's grandmother, appeared once again, her face etched with resolve. She sat down on the bench beside them, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Lucas, I think it's time you learned the truth. This man, he's your father." Lucas stared at Michael, his young face a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "My father," he whispered, his fingers brushing the strings of his violin. Michael knelt in front of him, tears in his eyes. "Yes, Lucas. I didn't know about you until recently. If I had, I would have been there for you every step of the way." The weight of the revelation hung in the air, thick and suffocating. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, Lucas's eyes filled with tears, and without a word, he threw his arms around Michael in a hesitant but heartfelt embrace. It was a moment full of all the lost years, but it also marked the beginning of something new. From that day on, Michael became a part of Lucas's life. They spent countless hours together, bonding over their shared love of music and stories of Isabel. Lucas's grandmother, initially cautious, began to warm to the idea of Michael being in Lucas's life. She shared memories of Isabel with him, filling in the gaps of the past that Michael had missed. Through the music they played together, Michael found a way to reconnect not only with Lucas but also with the memory of Isabel. And in Lucas's eyes, in every note he played, Michael saw the love that had never truly left him. Together, father and son composed a new melody, a story of redemption, second chances, and a bond that transcended time.